Welcome back to Easy English Talk Podcast.
Have you ever noticed how one bad comment can ruin your whole day, but 10 good comments barely make you smile? Your brain is actually trained to do this, and today we're going to talk about changing that pattern. Welcome to Easy English Talk Podcast. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Priya. Happy to be here with you today. This is such an important topic because our thoughts really shape our entire experience of life. Today, we are discussing how to train your brain to think positively.
So, Priya, let's start with the big question here. Why do so many people struggle with negative thinking? Is it just bad luck or is something else going on?
Well, Ryan, it's actually built into how our brains work. Our ancestors survived because they noticed danger and threats quickly. If you heard a noise in the bushes, it was safer to assume it was a tiger than a friendly rabbit.
That makes sense from a survival perspective. So our brains are like ancient alarm systems that never got updated. We're still looking for tigers even though we're just sitting at our desks.
Exactly right. That's a great way to put it. Scientists call this the negativity bias, and it means our brains naturally focus more on bad things than good things. One criticism at work can feel more powerful than 5 compliments.
I've definitely experienced that myself. Someone says something slightly negative and my brain just holds on to it for days. But why does the brain do this if it makes us feel bad?
Because feeling bad kept our ancestors alive. If you felt relaxed and happy all the time, you might not notice the real dangers around you. So the brain developed this habit of scanning for problems constantly.
That's interesting, but also kind of frustrating. We're not really in danger most of the time in modern life. So this negativity bias is basically outdated software running in our heads?
That's a perfect way to describe it, Ryan. And the tricky part is that this negative thinking becomes a habit over time. The more you think negatively, the easier it becomes for your brain to do it automatically.
So it's like a path in the forest that gets deeper the more you walk on it. Every negative thought makes the next negative thought easier to have. That sounds like a really difficult cycle to break.
It is difficult, but here's the good news. Your brain has something called neuroplasticity, which means it can change and form new patterns. You're not stuck with negative thinking forever if you're willing to practice new habits.
Okay, so neuroplasticity means the brain can learn new ways of thinking. That gives me hope, but I imagine it's not as simple as just deciding to be positive. What actually stops people from making this change?
Well, one big problem is that negative thinking feels automatic and true. When your brain tells you, I'm going to fail, or everyone thinks I'm stupid, it doesn't feel like a thought, it feels like a fact, like something you just know is real.
Oh, that's such an important point. So people don't question their negative thoughts because those thoughts feel like reality. It's like the brain is playing tricks on itself.
Exactly. And another problem is that changing your thinking requires effort. Negative thinking is the easy path because your brain has practiced it for years. Positive thinking feels unnatural at first, like learning to write with your other hand.
That makes sense. It's like going to the gym for your mind. At first, it's uncomfortable and you don't see results immediately. So people give up before the new habit has time to form.
Yes, and there's one more big obstacle we should mention. Many people confuse positive thinking with fake positivity or ignoring real problems. They think being positive means pretending everything is perfect when it's not.
Right, and nobody wants to be that person who's smiling through genuine problems. So there's a fear that positive thinking means losing touch with reality. That's actually a valid concern if we're not clear about what positive thinking really means.
Absolutely. Positive thinking doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending bad things don't exist. It means choosing to focus on what you can control and finding helpful ways to frame challenges. It's about being realistic and hopeful at the same time.
Okay, so now that we understand the problem, let's talk about solutions. Where does someone actually start if they want to train their brain differently? What's the first practical step?
The first step is simply becoming aware of your thoughts. Most people go through their day without really noticing what their inner voice is saying. You need to start paying attention to the commentary running in your head.
So it's like turning on the lights in a dark room? You can't change what you don't notice first. How does someone practice this awareness?
A simple way is to check in with yourself a few times during the day. Set a reminder on your phone if you need to. And when it goes off, pause and ask yourself what you were just thinking. Just notice it without judging yourself for having negative thoughts.
That sounds manageable. It's not asking people to change anything yet. Just watch and notice, like being a scientist observing your own mind. What do people usually discover when they start doing this?
Most people are shocked by how mean their inner voice actually is. They realize they talk to themselves in ways they would never talk to a friend. Things like, I'm so stupid, or I always mess everything up, are surprisingly common.
Wow. So step 1 reveals that we're often our own worst critics. Once someone notices these patterns, what comes next? Do they start trying to replace negative thoughts immediately?
Not quite yet. The next step is to question those negative thoughts. Just because a thought appears in your head doesn't mean it's true. You need to challenge it like you would challenge a rumor someone told you.
So you become a detective investigating your own thinking. What kind of questions should people ask themselves? Can you give us an example of how this works?
Sure. Let's say your thought is, I'm terrible at my job. First you ask, is this thought completely true or am I exaggerating? Then you look for evidence. Have I ever done anything well at work?
And I imagine most people will find evidence that contradicts their negative thought. Maybe they completed a project successfully or received positive feedback at some point. So the negative thought starts to lose its power.
Exactly. You're not lying to yourself or being fake. You're just being fair and looking at the whole picture instead of only the negative parts. Another good question is, would I say this to a friend in the same situation?
That's a powerful question because the answer is usually no. We give our friends compassion and perspective, but we give ourselves harsh criticism. This really highlights how unfair we are to ourselves.
Right. And one more helpful question is, will this matter in 5 years? This helps you see if you're making something bigger than it actually is. A lot of our daily worries are about things that won't matter at all in the long run.
These questions sound simple, but I can see how they would shift your thinking over time. It's like you're training your brain to be more balanced and fair. What happens after someone gets good at questioning their negative thoughts?
Then you move to the next step, which is deliberately practicing positive thoughts. And before you think this sounds cheesy, let me explain what I mean. It's not about repeating fake affirmations that you don't believe.
Okay, good. Because I think that's where a lot of people roll their eyes at positive thinking. Nobody wants to stand in front of a mirror saying, I'm amazing when they feel terrible. So what does real positive thinking practice actually look like?
It starts with looking for small, true, positive things throughout your day. Maybe your coffee tasted good, or someone smiled at you, or you finished a task you were avoiding. You actively notice these moments and let yourself appreciate them for a few seconds.
So it's about training your attention to catch the good stuff, because the brain is already automatically catching the bad stuff on its own. This seems like it's balancing out the negativity bias we talked about earlier.
Exactly. You're retraining your attention. At first, this feels forced and awkward, just like we said earlier. But over time, your brain gets better at noticing positive things automatically.
How long does it usually take before this starts to feel natural? I imagine people want to know if they're looking at weeks or months of practice. What does the research say about this?
Studies show that it takes about 2 to 3 months of consistent practice for a new habit to become automatic. But people often start noticing small changes within just a few weeks. The key word here is consistent. You need to practice every day.
Every day. That's a big commitment. But I guess it makes sense if you think about how long your brain has been practicing negative thinking. What does a daily positive thinking practice actually look like in real life?
It can be very simple, maybe 5 to 10 minutes a day. Some people keep a gratitude journal where they write down 3 good things that happened. Others just take a few minutes before bed to mentally review the positive moments from their day.
The gratitude journal is pretty popular. I've heard about that before. Does it matter what you write down, or is any positive thing good enough? Should people aim for big things, or are small things okay too?
Small things are actually more powerful than big things. If you only write down major achievements or big events, you won't have much to write most days. But noticing that your lunch was delicious or that the weather was nice, that's something you can find every single day.
That's really freeing, actually. You don't have to wait for something amazing to happen. You can train your brain with ordinary moments. Are there other practical exercises people can try besides turtling?
Yes, another great exercise is the three good things conversation. At dinner or before bed, share three good things that happened with a family member or friend. This works especially well with kids because you're teaching them positive thinking too.
I like that because it's social. You're not just doing it alone. And it probably feels more natural than writing in a journal for some people. What about people who live alone or don't have someone to share with?
They can do a voice recording on their phone or just say it out loud to themselves. The act of speaking the words actually helps your brain process and remember the positive moments better than just thinking them. It sounds a bit silly at first, but it works.
Okay. So we've talked about awareness, questioning negative thoughts, and practicing gratitude. What else can help train the brain toward positive thinking? Are there any other tools or techniques we should cover?
Yes, let's talk about reframing, which is a really powerful skill. Reframing means taking a negative situation and looking at it from a different angle. It's not about pretending something bad is good. It's about finding what you can learn or how you can grow.
Can you give us a concrete example? I want to make sure people understand how this is different from just being fake positive. What would reframing look like in a real situation?
Sure, imagine you didn't get a job you really wanted. A negative thought pattern would be, I'm not good enough. I'll never get hired. I'm a failure. A reframing approach would be, this job wasn't the right fit. I learned what to improve for next time. I'm one step closer to finding the right opportunity.
Okay, I see the difference. You're still acknowledging that you didn't get the job, that's the reality, but you're choosing to focus on growth and possibility instead of defeat.
Exactly. And here's something important about reframing. It gets easier with practice because you're literally creating new neural pathways in your brain. The more you reframe, the faster your brain will do it automatically.
So, eventually, your brain starts reframing things without you even trying. That's the goal we're working toward. How can people practice the skill before they really need it?
Great question. You can practice reframing with small, daily annoyances first. Traffic jam? Opportunity to listen to that podcast or music you love. Rainy day? Good excuse to stay cozy inside. These little practices build the skill for bigger challenges.
That's smart. You're building the muscle with light weights before you try heavy lifting. Now, let's talk about something that might surprise people. Does physical health actually affect how we think?
Oh, absolutely. The connection between body and mind is huge. When you're tired, hungry, or physically unwell, your brain defaults to negative thinking much more easily. You might have noticed you're more irritable or pessimistic when you haven't slept well.
I definitely notice that in myself. Everything feels harder when I'm exhausted. So, taking care of your body is actually part of training your brain to think positively? What are the most important physical factors?
Sleep is probably number one. Your brain needs rest to function well. When you're sleep deprived, the amygdala, which is the fear and emotion center of your brain, becomes more active. This means you literally perceive more threats and think more negatively.
Wow. So lack of sleep actually changes how your brain processes the world? That explains why everything feels more stressful when I'm tired. What about exercise? Does that help with positive thinking?
Exercise is incredibly powerful for your mental state. When you move your body, your brain releases chemicals like endorphins and serotonin. These are natural mood boosters that make positive thinking much easier.
So you're giving your brain the chemical support it needs to think better. It's not just about willpower and discipline then. What kind of exercise works best? Does it have to be intense?
Even a 20-minute walk can make a difference. You don't need to run a marathon or lift heavy weights. The key is regular movement, something you do most days of the week.
That's encouraging. It doesn't have to be complicated. What about food? Does what we eat affect our thinking patterns? I've heard people talk about nutrition and mental health.
Yes, your brain needs proper fuel to work well. Foods high in sugar might give you a quick boost, but then you crash and feel worse. Steady energy from whole foods, protein, and healthy fats keeps your brain stable and helps you think more clearly.
So the physical foundation matters a lot. It's hard to think positively if your brain is running on empty. Let's talk about another angle now. What role do other people play in our thinking patterns?
Other people have a massive influence on how we think. If you spend time with negative, complaining people, that energy rubs off on you. Your brain actually mirrors the emotions and attitudes of people around you.
Really? So it's like emotions are contagious. That sounds both scary and hopeful, depending on who you're around. How does this mirroring actually work?
Your brain has something called mirror neurons that fire when you see someone else experiencing an emotion. This is why you feel tense when someone around you is anxious, or why you smile when someone else smiles. You're literally picking up on their mental state.
That's fascinating. And it explains why office moods can spread so quickly. One person complaining can bring down a whole team's energy. So, choosing who you spend time with is actually part of training your brain?
Absolutely. You want to spend time with people who are generally positive and solution-focused, not fake positive people who ignore problems, but people who face challenges with hope and resilience. Their way of thinking will influence yours over time.
What if you can't avoid negative people? Like maybe it's a family member or coworker. You can't always choose who's in your life. How do you protect your thinking in those situations?
You can set mental boundaries, which means you don't absorb everything they say. Listen with compassion, but don't let their negativity become your negativity. After spending time with them, you might need to do something to reset your mood, like going for a walk or calling a positive friend.
So it's about being aware and intentional rather than just absorbing everything around you. That takes practice too, I imagine. Let's shift to another important topic. What about when life is genuinely hard?
This is so important to address because life isn't always easy. Sometimes you face real loss, real disappointment, real pain. Positive thinking doesn't mean denying these experiences or pretending they don't hurt.
Right, because that's where positive thinking gets a bad reputation. Nobody wants to be told to just think positive when they're going through something genuinely difficult. So how does positive thinking work during hard times?
During hard times, positive thinking means believing you can get through it. It means looking for small moments of light, even in dark periods. It means trusting that you have strength and that things can get better, even if you can't see how yet.
That's a much more realistic and compassionate approach. It's not about forcing yourself to be happy, it's about maintaining hope. Can you give an example of what this looks like?
Sure. Imagine someone loses their job. Toxic positivity would say, everything happens for a reason. This is actually great. Healthy positive thinking says, this is really hard, and I'm allowed to be sad and scared. And I'm going to take it one day at a time and trust that I'll find a way forward.
That second approach acknowledges the pain but doesn't get stuck in hopelessness. It's honest and resilient at the same time. How do people maintain this balance when emotions are running high?
It helps to have phrases ready that you can use during tough moments. Things like, this is hard, but I've gotten through hard things before. Or, I don't know how this will work out, but I'm going to take the next small step.
Those are really helpful. They're realistic but not defeated. I can see how having these ready in advance would be useful. Let's talk about setbacks now, because I imagine most people won't transform their thinking overnight.
Setbacks are completely normal and expected. You'll have days where you fall back into negative thinking, and that's okay. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress over time.
So people shouldn't give up just because they have a bad day or week. How should they handle it when they notice they've slipped back into old patterns? What's the recovery strategy?
First, don't beat yourself up about it. That just adds more negativity. Instead, just notice it and gently redirect yourself. Think of it like training a puppy. You don't yell at the puppy for making a mistake, you just guide it back to the right path.
I love that analogy. It's patient and kind. So self-compassion is actually part of positive thinking training. You have to be nice to yourself during the process?
Self-compassion is essential. It's actually one of the foundations. Research shows that people who are kind to themselves during setbacks recover faster and succeed more often. Beating yourself up doesn't motivate change. It just makes you feel worse.
That makes sense. But I think many people struggle with self-compassion. They think it means being lazy or letting themselves off the hook. How would you explain the difference between self-compassion and making excuses?
Self-compassion says, I made a mistake. I'm human, and I can learn from this. Making excuses says, it's not my fault, nothing is ever my fault, I have no responsibility. One takes ownership while being kind. The other avoids ownership entirely.
That's a clear distinction. Self-compassion is actually harder in some ways because you're being honest with yourself. Now let's talk about maintaining these changes long-term, because that's where many people struggle.
Long-term maintenance is all about making positive thinking a part of your identity. At first, it's something you do, but eventually it becomes part of who you are. You start to see yourself as someone who faces challenges with a positive mindset.
How does someone make that shift from doing to being? That sounds like a pretty big transformation. What's the bridge between those two stages?
Consistency over time is the bridge. When you practice positive thinking every day for months, it stops feeling like an effort. Your brain rewires itself, and the new patterns become your default way of thinking.
So you're literally becoming a different version of yourself. Your brain is different, your automatic responses are different. That's pretty powerful when you think about it.
It really is, and here's something important. You don't have to maintain the same level of intense practice forever. Once the habit is established, you just need to maintain it, which takes less effort.
That's good to know. People don't have to do gratitude journals forever if they don't want to. Once the brain is retrained, it runs on its own more. What kind of maintenance does someone need to keep doing?
Just stay aware of your thoughts and catch yourself when you slip into old patterns. Keep surrounding yourself with positive influences and maybe revisit the structured practices if you notice yourself struggling.
So it's like exercise. You build the fitness and then you maintain it. But you can always go back to more intense training if you need a boost. Let's talk about measuring progress, because I think people want to know if it's working.
Progress in positive thinking can be subtle at first. You might not feel dramatically different right away, but you'll start to notice small things, like you recover from disappointments faster.
What other signs show someone that their brain is changing? I imagine it's easy to miss progress if you don't know what to look for. What should people pay attention to?
You might notice you're less reactive to small annoyances. Maybe you find yourself naturally looking for solutions instead of dwelling on problems. Or other people might comment that you seem more relaxed or positive.
Sometimes others notice our changes before we do ourselves. That's interesting because we're with ourselves all the time. Should people keep some kind of record to track their progress?
A simple journal can help you see how far you've come. Just write down how you're feeling once a week or once a month. When you look back, you'll often be surprised by how much you've changed.
That's encouraging. Evidence of your own growth. What about when progress feels slow or stuck? What can someone do if they feel like nothing is changing?
First, make sure you're being consistent with the practices. Change requires regular practice, not occasional effort. If you are being consistent, you might need to try different techniques or approaches.
So some flexibility is needed. What works for one person might not work for another. This isn't a one-size-fits-all process. That makes sense given how different everyone's brain and life is.
Exactly. Some people love journaling, others prefer talking out loud. Some people connect with reframing, others respond better to physical exercise and sleep. Experiment and find what resonates with you personally.
We've covered so much ground today. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that's crucial for people to understand? Any final piece of wisdom about training your brain?
Yes, I want to emphasize that this is a lifelong practice, not a destination. You never finish training your brain. You're always working with it. But that's actually good news because it means you can always improve and grow.
That takes the pressure off trying to be perfect. It's a journey, not a race to some finish line. And every small step matters, even if it doesn't feel dramatic.
Exactly. And remember that your brain wants to help you survive and thrive. Negative thinking isn't your enemy, it's just an outdated tool. You're teaching your brain that in today's world, positive thinking is actually the better survival strategy.
That's a beautiful way to think about it. You're not fighting against your brain, you're updating it with better information. So, as we come to the end of this conversation, let's summarize the key points.
We talked about how the brain has a natural negativity bias from evolution. This bias made sense for survival, but creates problems in modern life. The good news is that your brain can change through neuroplasticity.
We covered practical steps starting with awareness of your thoughts, then questioning whether those negative thoughts are actually true, then practicing gratitude and deliberately noticing positive moments every day.
We discussed reframing challenges as opportunities to learn and grow. We talked about how physical health, sleep, exercise, and food affect your thinking, and how the people around you influence your mental patterns.
We addressed how to handle genuinely hard times with healthy positive thinking, how to deal with setbacks without giving up or being harsh with yourself, and how to maintain these changes long-term until they become part of who you are.
The most important thing to remember is that training your brain takes time and consistent practice. Be patient with yourself, celebrate small progress, and keep going even when it feels difficult. Your brain is capable of remarkable change if you give it the right conditions.
This has been such a valuable conversation, Priya. I think our listeners now have real, practical tools they can start using today. Thank you for breaking down this complex topic in such a clear and accessible way.
It was my pleasure, Ryan. This is such an important topic. I hope everyone listening feels encouraged that change is possible. Your thoughts shape your life, so learning to guide them in a positive direction is one of the most valuable skills you can develop.
Well said. And to everyone listening, thank you for spending this time with us today. We know you have many choices for how to spend your time, and we're grateful you chose to listen to us. If you found this helpful, we have many other topics that might interest you as well.
We'd love for you to explore our other episodes on topics like managing stress, building confidence, and improving communication. Each episode is designed to give you practical tools for everyday life. Take care of yourselves and remember that every small step towards positive thinking matters.
Until next time, be kind to yourself and others. Keep practicing, keep growing, and trust that your brain is capable of learning new patterns. This is Ryan and Priya from Easy English Talk Podcast, wishing you all the best on your journey.